So I'm sitting down today with Tyson Ray. Tyson, you've been a friend of mine for years now, and
I need to apologize for that.
no apologies necessary. I guess I'll just let you tell a little bit about who you are and what you do. Kind of, who you are and what you do. Start with that.
Yes, it's a great question when you start asking yourself, "Who are you?" So,
oh Lord, I don't need the deep thinking.
Yes,
who
right.
are you?
high level, just a follower of Jesus. High level father of 3 sons, husband to my wife. I own a financial services firm, and try and serve the Lord through that. What I think that's my ministry or my calling.
Yep. How long have you been doing that? Financial planning and all that.
Yeah, I've been a financial advisor for about 27 years. I was investing since I was 16.
Okay. From a financial investing perspective or a financial planning perspective, you've had a whole variety of roles, though, from where you worked for companies, you were part owner, now, and it's shifted to you own your own. Take us just quickly on that journey.
Yeah, no, I got saved my last semester of college and went into financial services through that. It was just clear this is what God was doing. So I had my own. I worked for a broker dealer firm. I had the phone book. I cold called. Built a book of business that was in Pensacola, Florida. Yeah. Moved back home, this is home. And got into a partnership with a gentleman named Dick Honeyegger over in Delvin. And I was 23, 24. Dick was in his late 60s.
Yep.
And was able to apprentice that. I really think our world is missing the ability for the younger generation to work underneath and really be mentored. Learned a lot of what to do. Learned a lot of what not to do. I was in the business right before the tech bubble burst.
Okay, yeah.
So I had to experience that and 9/11 and some of those events and the financial crisis, obviously. Dick retired at 72, and so I was 27, 28, and was able to buy his practice and take that over. And that was really kind of a life-changing experience because being able to take over a business in my late 20s that was a 40-year-old business all of a sudden allowed me to be free of. And really, when I started partnering with Dick, I was free of the having to sell.
Yeah.
I purposely moved home to remove the conflict of how am I going to financially feed myself and yet do what's right for the client, because there was this constant conflict. And by moving back home to grandma's house, literally, and so I was living free. The farm always had food. And to be able to then go work for Mr. Honeyegger and help him with his practice and his clients, it allowed me to have the freedom of just doing what was right.
That
was the foundation to which we've grown the practice. But yes, I've worked for different financial firms, have moved progressively to layers of independence. A couple of years ago, we went completely independent. We own our firm completely outright.
It's awesome.
We just try and help people steward what God has given them.
Yeah. And I would say you have a unique approach in terms of your passions, your purpose as a financial planner that you can probably say it succinctly of what sets you apart from many financial planners that's unique to you.
We don't put the focus on the money.
Which is huge, which is kind of bizarre.
Yeah. So the firm's name is Form Wealth Advisors. The word form is an acronym, and it stands for your family, because money flows through generations, and that's ultimately what we care the most for is our family. Our occupation is where a lot of times we're accumulating our wealth or the resources that we have. The R stands for recreation, and those are things that we're enjoying doing. They change over time. And then the M is for mission. And what is the impact you're wanting to leave in this world? And what I get most excited about in my 27 years, where I get out of bed in the morning, is to help clients work through form to get to mission,
to get to the M.
Yeah,
because most aren't ever thinking about that. They're just thinking about nest egg and what's the big number at the end.
Yeah, and so our feeling is, and I think where we're very different is we focus on the form of a client's life to then figure out how to deal with the wealth. And I think too many financial advisors just start and end with the money.
Yeah. And obviously that the wanting to have mission with your life, it started first and foremost with you in your relationship with Christ. And so kind of take us back to, you mentioned you gave your life to Christ when you were in college.
Yeah.
So take us back to the beginning of when did you learn to give to Jesus? And then how did you even begin your giving journey? Because I think that's so foundational. I've heard the story, so I know it. But in how you think about mission and you think about finances.
Yeah. So the short version of all of our long stories, right? So I grew up in this area, and Dad left Mom with 4 kids and an eviction notice, and so at like the age 12 or 13, I was riding my bike into Williams Bay to bus tables at the Bayshore Inn, which was to make $100, which like back then was just like, oh my gosh. And I had enough money because, when you did Lake Geneva back then was much more, and it has a lot of it today. This area is kind of the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was so excited that I could save up enough money to buy a shirt with a horse on it. Because that was at the time a big deal. And the jeans maybe had that little label, right? So you could fit in. And because of growing up without money, that was my kingdom, right?
Yeah.
That was like, oh, we got to make money. When I turned 16, I started saving $100 a month from my wages into 2 mutual funds because I got a ride home one day from somebody in a Ferrari. I lied at what house I lived in because I was embarrassed.
Wow.
And we were sitting in the driveway of a home I didn't live in. And I kind of just asked him, like, how?
Yeah.
Like,
how did you get here?
And he had owned a business, but what he said is I really did well in my investments. And so at the high school at the time, there was a stock market game where basically it's hypothetical, but you get to pick investments, all sorts of stuff. And, I don't feel like I'm that old, but this was back before technology, right? Like went to the library and got the Wall Street Journal and you were looking at prices from yesterday and you were trying to look in the paper to track stuff. And I wanted to buy a stock that had gone from $12 a share to $7 a share. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew the symbol was INTC, which stood for Intel. This was before it was in anything, right? And by God's grace, my mom said no, right? Eviction notice, like, you're not taking your money out of your chubby chick mountain bank account earning interest. It's safe, right? You are going to, that was literally what it was called. It was the bank in Williams Bay. And that's safe, right? You can't risk that. And I dragged her into the stockbroker's office because I was mad to find out I couldn't do this on my own as a minor. And she convinced her to allow me to start putting $100 a month into 2 mutual funds. And it wasn't an all or nothing bet and all this other stuff. And I'm so thankful she said no, because like any kid, when you're told no, then that's what you want. Right. And so it just became a passion. That then took me through college and pride, prestige, promotion, power, finances, resources was all of that I was about. It's like all I wanted. And by my last semester of college, I was empty. It was meaningless, as Ecclesiastes says. And through a lot of different circumstances of different people that had made little mustard seed plantings, I reached out to somebody. I had a fraternity brother commit suicide, and as the president of the fraternity, I had to go call the parents. And didn't realize the cops hadn't gotten to the parents yet.
Oh my word!
Only child, their only son. I'm calling to say I'm sorry, and they're like, "For what?"
Oh my word!
And so a lot of it was kind of just, and I was raised in kind of a Catholic upbringing, and some family members were saved, so I had a little of the exposure of Jesus, but I just kind of kept it. At a distance. But there was just real questions. It's like, what's life all about? Right. You're coming to the end of your graduating college. And it's like, what am I going to do with my life? All this stuff. And, I got introduced to, I was able to be brought to a small group, that was led by the pastor of the church. He had a calling for college kids. And after that one night, I went up to him before I left, and I'm just kind of like, I just don't know if I die today, I don't know where I'm going. And he's like, let's have a conversation.
Wow.
And that led to the salvation experience. And I'm anybody that knows me, I'm kind of intense, and I'm kind of all or nothing. And I was so done with what the world had to offer. And everything I thought every time I achieved something, I was disappointed. With what the world said, this is what's going to fulfill you. And so my last semester of college, I was saved. I got baptized, and I was starting to kind of encourage, read the Bible. And okay, well, guess what? If you read the Bible, you'll stumble across things about tithing and giving and offerings. And
right.
it's just like, okay. And I remember going to this is funny. I remember going to an elder of the church, and I'm like, says I'm supposed to be given 10%.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, do you have any income? I'm like, no, But I said, I feel like I'm supposed to be given 10%. He's like, well, you're a college student. You don't have to worry about that yet. And I'm like, there's no footnote.
Yeah.
Right. He told me to read this. And I lliterally was sitting there with this was back, when we actually had checkbooks. And I was sitting at church with my checkbook. I had $40 in my checking account. And God was just like 10%. And I wrote a $4 check.
A $4 check.
And 2 months later, I get hired out of college, which doesn't happen at a Wall Street, major broker dealer to basically help people with their money. And as I was praying, I actually grabbed the pastor and dragged him down to the office in Pensacola, Florida, where I was getting hired, and we laid hands on the building and prayed that, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I also said to him, it's like, all right, I'm going to commit every paycheck. I'm 10%. I'm move decimal place one spot. And that didn't come without testing, because within 6 months of getting hired out of college into this career, moving that decimal place, right? My paycheck 6 months in, after what little salary I had, because it was your pure commission.
Right.
So I'm now pure commission. I'm 6 months in, and my paycheck for the entire month was $400. And I had enjoyed being able to take that check, look at the check, move the decimal place. And the first thing I did was write the check to the church, or write the tithe. And it was just like, this isn't enough to pay your rent. This isn't enough to pay your car payment. This isn't enough to make your minimum credit card payment. I was going to pay a credit card payment with a credit card, but I still did it. And ironically, 6 months later, I basically decided, Lord, if I'm going to fail success, I'm the biggest failure. If this isn't meant to be, I'm going out and they're going to drag me out of this career, but I'm all in.
Yeah.
And 4 months later, the check was $4,000, and I got to write a $400 check. About a year later, I had a $40,000 paycheck for a month. I had an insurance case that came through, and I got to write a $4,000 check. And
that's crazy. So each time it's the fours. It's like,
it was just
4, 40, 400, 4,000.
Yeah. Sometimes God's got to hit me really hard.
Yes.
And and he's really consistent.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was foundational, and it was also breaking the lie that money was this kingdom. That was what was going to fulfill me. What was fulfilling me was doing the right thing, helping people solve problems within their own finances, and taking the first fruits of what I was given and giving it back.
Yeah.
There was such a wholeness to that there wasn't when I was clinging to it and thought it was mine. And
so good.
So, yeah.
So good. And what would you tell new believers who may not have yet taken kind of that first step into giving and trusting God with their resources? What would you say to them? And maybe you have had these conversations with people and you're like,
yeah, it's I would tell them what's in the Bible. It's just like, hey, test them. Right. But here's what doesn't work. What doesn't work is, after you've consumed your life, after you've taken your this income that you have for this work, and you've done everything with it that you wanted to do, and then you give of your leftovers, that's not
the same.
That's not the same, right? Yeah. That there's a part of it you have to. It's like the salvation experience. You have to experience it. And so that's what I would tell them, and then I would tell them that from my own experience, which is all I know, it was a sacrifice to write a $4 check when all you had in the bank was $40. It was a sacrifice to write a $40 check when all of a sudden I wasn't going to be able to pay. I knew I wasn't going to be able to pay these other bills.
Yeah, right.
And so there's a part of, if you're starting out and you feel you can't because you are trusting yourself with what your resources are. It's just like, I laugh how simple God made the tithe. It's a tenth, and it's buy-in. And my feeling is, hey, Lord, I'm going to buy into. I'm trusting you
Yeah.
with this, but I'd rather trust you with this and do this with you
Yeah.
than I got it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. No, I'll believe in you and your sacrifice. But this area of my life with regards to finances, I got it. Right. So I'm going to control that, or I'm going to decide where that goes. And it's just like, no, there's just such freedom. And it's like the first here, you get this first.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do this together and see what happens. And I'm going to trust you where those other resources come in. And it's a whole other aspect of just faith and the journey you get to go in.
Yeah.
That's what I think I'd say.
Yeah. Well, and I've been there as well. I love that you emphasize the give the first. And quite frankly, I think every single one of us at some point in your giving journey, you're going to have to stare at the dollars that don't add up. Like, I just think that almost I don't know of anyone who doesn't have that as part of their story, who's actually taken a step into this journey. When you think about the stages of faith when giving, so sometimes we think about, you give your first gift, then maybe it's incremental giving, like you're actually giving a percentage giving, but maybe you haven't made it to the tithe. What are some of the common stages that you've dealt with or watched others struggle through?
Well, I think we all struggle with the fact that the world system is it's all set up with our name on it, so we think it's ours, right? The paycheck comes with our name on it.
Yeah,
it's my job, right? So,
right. Yeah.
So we then it's mine. So you don't think necessarily to give of it. I think for those that are wanting to grow more into that giving or generosity, it's to realize, okay, well, guess what? Oftentimes, sometimes annually, sometimes not, we get these crazy things called pay raises. Well, that's a really good way to get to tithe, right? Okay, you got the extra. Well, give the extra or give a portion of the extra.
Yeah.
And create a plan of how you're going to get there. Or maybe pull back on some consumption and some things to realize, what can you give up? Because this, we are all overwhelmed with the sacrifice of Jesus as you really get into what that relationship is. And one of the ways it's hard for us to physically sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, every one of us can financially sacrifice. And
which no one wants to do.
No one wants to. Well, and there's, billions of dollars being spent every day in advertising to tell us why we shouldn't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the most important financial habits that you find yourself coaching people in?
The consistency of it.
Okay.
As far as the how whatever the
consistency of what? Giving.
Yeah.
Saving, strategizing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go down just from financial stewardship. But if on a kind of a giving, whatever the rhythm of which you receive it, or I would say, however the resources come into you, is the rhythm to which I think you should give it.
Okay.
So if you're a farmer and you only get paid once or twice a year when you sell the harvest, okay, well, that's the rhythm for you. If you get paid every week, that's the rhythm for you.
That's probably your best rhythm. Yeah.
Because what you have to realize is the devil's prowling around, right, to try and tempt us to do all kinds of things. And if we're going to wait till the end of the month to make the tithe, but we got paid 4 times, that's 4 weeks to find all kinds of reasons and temptations to spend the money.
Right. Yeah.
To then make that check.
Yep. Yeah. I know. I mean, it's just, these are Lisa's and my personal habits is that we do everything. We do a lot of it is automated, from our giving to our saving as well. And I mean, everything's just moving, and whether checks are being sent or they're moving into other accounts. But I just find, like, if I don't automate it, if I don't say this happens first, it just doesn't happen. Yeah. The problem
I hate the automated part for this reason.
I know. I
remember when I finally switched. I remember when I finally switched to the automatic bill pay, and you could do it online. Yeah. And I passed the plate but didn't put anything in it. It's like everyone's looking at me, right? They all know. And it's like, no, I gave electronically. I would have have a sign.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's like, no, you can. And I'm feeling the conviction of even saying this because you can take the plate or the bucket here at Lakeland and you can pause for a second.
Yeah.
And give thanks for what you have.
Right.
And surrender what you gave to the Lord.
Yeah.
and pass it on. I think too many of us are just tossing it by and losing the opportunity to connect again.
Well, and that's even part of why we restarted taking just a moment of time to pray over our offering. Was that kind of like, let's recommit. Because so many, I think it's 96% of the people who give actually here at Lakeland, they give online. So, that's the norm for many people, just because that's the world in which we live.
The other problem though is the other thing, pay attention. Because I think the habit of here, I'm giving online, so I set up the donation that goes out, once a month or however you're setting it up. But then you get the pay raise, and the donation stays the same. Right. Do you tally at the end of the year? Did you actually get there? Do you need to do it? My wife and I get excited at the end of the year for just the nature of how things come financially to us at times, to just what I say, true up. And then be able to go, okay, there's this extra now that we get to give, and where's that going to go?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. One of the things that one of your specialties, I would say, is you think about legacy and legacy giving. What are some of the questions that we should be asking ourselves, or that we should be processing to even get to that place in our lives?
Yeah, I think one of them is for those that are listening to this. If you're listening to this and you're enjoying the tithe and you're all in on that, well, what I've also found doesn't necessarily stop there, or we limit the tithe to our paycheck, but we have these other resources. And this is for me, so that's all. This is what I have discerned, and so what I've discerned is if the investment or the property is changing form, that you're now bringing it in as a liquid something to then do something else with, more from a consumption standpoint. That's another opportunity to tithe. If you've made this investment and has made this profit, and now you're selling this investment, or this item, or what, land or homes or whatever, it's, so I'm not saying, I'm going to sell this house and buy this house. That's a like exchange. But if we've had this other property, or we inherited some of these things, and now we're bringing them into our bank accounts or into our ability to now consume from them, this is where I think gifts get to come in, and it's to be mindful, to be thinking in those terms of both the consistency of giving. If it's set up and it's automatically reoccurring as pay raises happen, don't forget to adjust to keep the arrangement right of the test with the Lord, and at the same time, as these different things come in that are one-offs, to not forget that she poured what the alabaster jar was, the wealth. On Jesus's feet. And the significance of that is wherever the gospel's preached, we're going to talk about this. And many people over the journey of their life come into different events where they have an alabaster jar. And that's another opportunity to think about what is it to do with this, that I'm also, it's even pausing yourself to go, God, is there anything I should be doing with this? Right? If I was to give a tenth of this, or some portion of this, what are you calling me to?
Of this abundance, of this thing that I came into. Is there thought processes, beliefs, convictions that we need to face when thinking about legacy giving?
All right, say it again.
Are there thought processes, beliefs, maybe they're lies, or maybe convictions that we need to form when we face, or that we need to face into when we're thinking about legacy?
The first one that comes to mind, the lie is legacy has to be when you're dead. One of the greatest joys I have in counseling, ministering to clients, is the concept of giving while you're living. And then that could be
creating a legacy while you're here.
And that can, I think the other lie is a gift has to be tax deductible. Right. I think giving can be
so good.
Well, I'm just saying.
Everyone wants a write-off or
or it's in the mind. Again, the way the world is set up, it created a structure. So, and we live in that structure, right? But God will prompt people. God can prompt you as you're listening to this, that there's someone you want to help, but I don't get the tax deduction. Or you think only in 501c3s, right? And it's just like, no. And I think that's giving while you're living is thinking in terms of different family members or different people in need or the church or capital projects or just stuff that's just like, wow, I want to participate in that. It's like, well, okay, instead of leaving it all when you're dead, maybe we can do a little bit of it now.
Is that a hard, as you meet with clients, is that a hard concept for people to wrap their head around? Like, do you feel like that's an uphill battle? Or as soon as you vision cast it, are people like, I'm in?
Yeah, I think the hard concept, and this is beyond just giving, the hard concept is people lose sight of what was principle and what was profit. As their investments or values or as things you own increase in value, you lose sight of there's gain there.
Yeah. It's just all yours now.
Right. And that's why I think that's the wisdom and the first fruits of give it away before, there's a difference between making the tithe after the money went in the bank account and now you see it in the bank balance and now that's my bank balance. And so if I cut that check psychologically, my bank balance has gone down. Yeah. Well, then get it out of there before it goes down. And that's why, again, when we're talking about receiving both paychecks and pay raises or assets that have been sold or appreciated or inheritances or things, before that hits your bank balance and now you have a mental accounting of that's my principal.
Yeah. That's my new balance.
Right. Right. And so for some clients, it's like you don't know how you want to participate in a capital campaign or you feel called to give something. It's just like, hey, guess what? Watch. Because the Lord is the Lord. All right. I'm going to give whatever increase I get in the next 12 months and whatever that is. And I've had some clients write some of the biggest checks by just saying, how about, we go through, how's the family? Family's fine, work's fine, or they're retired or they're recreations. And it's just like, we get into, giving and it's like, I just don't know how much I can give. I'm like, well, okay, we'll draw a line in the sand. We have this much money today in 12 months, whatever that number is,
whatever that
increases. Yeah. Let's give that. Maybe there's the amount now we can discern. What do we give of that?
Right.
And it's freeing people to not then get to the point 12 months later. And it's like that increase is now theirs in principle. And
It's the new number.
Right.
It's the new baseline. I had a couple other thoughts, but they're all gone now. Okay. Is there anything else? Here's always how my last question is always, what else should we be talking about? Like, what else have you been processing, or what would you want to share with the church at large?
Yeah, I think what I would share is one of the benefits of giving when you receive it is I had an experience where I worked for the firm for many, many years, was given stock for the firm. The firm got bought out. And I was 33, which is a significant age, because that was Jesus's age. And here comes this $1 million. And I was excited to tithe off it, and we prayed about it, and we made we gave half of that tithe to a local charity that they then turned and made it a matching campaign, and it made this huge difference for that organization. And we took the other half and we helped a family member adopt a baby girl out of Chicago who she was the sixth child of the mother of 5 fathers.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had been raised not realizing it with some of these racial overtones from one of my friend's fathers that I picked up from. And as this little baby girl was bouncing on my lap over that Christmas after the adoption went through, the freedom came from it's like, no, there is no like this. None of that's true. Right. And then the other quarter went to the first food packaging event. So any of you that know me, we have a foundation that packages meals. Well, that was the first 100,000 meals. We've now packaged over 2 million meals, but that was the first one. And the rest I left in the company that bought the company that I had been working for. And that was in 2007. In 2008, the financial crisis hit and that company went under. And what would have been that $1 million had I left was lost.
Wow.
And yet the legacy of what the gift was lives on.
Yeah.
And I had to go through a lot of processing with the Lord about
about the
other part of it. And,
Yeah,
and what I came to realize was if I was meant to have it for his glory and for whatever I would need in my life, I would have it.
Yeah.
But what I have is the lesson of, the reason to give while you can is because the Lord giveth and he takes away. Circumstances happen, or you may have temptations to spend this on all kinds of other things. I think if you're struggling with giving, what I think the church needs to hear as a whole is if you're struggling financially, some of the two biggest mistakes people make in finance are houses and cars. You buy too much house, or you buy you buy cars too frequently, and those come with debt, and those also come with impulses that it's very easy to do upgrades that you lose sight of a budget because your mental accounting just gets blurred when the dollars get bigger.
Yeah.
And then you try and fix that financial problem by not buying a Starbucks cup of coffee, right? And you just can't. And so being mindful that some of what God is calling you to, you may not be able to do right now because of some of the decisions you made that stretched you financially.
Yeah.
And so as you're tempted to do something different in those two realms, realize the consequences of that at times. Because I have clients that have a greater quality of life, have a greater level of contentment, that have a lot less stuff, made a lot less money, and yet have stewarded well what they have.
Yeah.
And have a greater peace as they go through every day of their life than those that have huge incomes, but all this stuff and leverage and stress. And it doesn't have to be that way.
That's good insight, man. So like your seat that you get to sit in to watch people live in a place of contentment with less, or have much but not be content. It's just got to be a fascinating seat to sit in.
Yes, and it is my privilege to sit aside from them and help them process what God is calling them to with what they have.
Yeah.
And I've never met someone in my entire career, or actually for my life for that matter, I've never met anyone that said, wow, I wish I didn't tithe. I wish I didn't make that gift. I wish I didn't give that away. I've met a lot of people that wish they wouldn't have clung onto or bought everything they bought.
So good. So good. Hey, thanks, Tyson. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much for sharing with us. And I pray that his words are encouraging to everyone who's listening. And if you ever are sitting there going, hey, I want to pick this guy's brain, run into him probably at church here at Lakeland.
Look for the shiny head.
Yeah, right? look for a bald head. That's right. All right, man. Thanks for being with us.